This is a short video about the Dayan and mf8 4x4. I'm sorry. I have a weird camera angle, partially because I don't really have a desk to work with right now, and partially because I'm going to be showing you the parts of the internal mechanisms of these, and I think this is a good angle to do this with. The reason I became interested in the structure of this is partially because of how I got the cube. I ordered the cube to my mother's house, but it got to my mom's house while I was staying at my dad's house. And so, since I feel a little bit guilty whenever I am supposed to be staying with one and spend some time with the other one, I kind of zipped over to my mom's house, sprayed some lube in it, and then left. Now, I learned from Cube Depot's video of this cube that when you got it, it would be very, very stiff. And it was, and so I expected this. But I lubed it by just taking out one of these pieces. This is a weird angle. By taking out one of these pieces, spraying in some lube, and putting it back in and moving it around. But what I found was these became very, very nice and smooth, the outer layers, but the inner layers were still very stiff and hard to move. And so I wondered why that was so. Now, classically, there are two different ways to construct a 4x4. The first way, which I think is the way the Rubik's brand originally did it, is to use a ball or a sphere for a core. How this works, if you can see these pieces, how they fit together here. The four centerpieces are locked into grooves. Let's see if I can get a good view of it. These pieces are locked into grooves, as you can kind of see right there in the light. And so the rest of the edges lock in around these centerpieces, and it works that way. And they put these centerpieces in because there are little gaps in parts of the grooves. Let's see if I can get a pic shot of that, where you can pull them out. Like there's one right here. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see it. And so that's how a ball and core structure works, or ball core structure works. The other way, which is the way East Sheen and mf8 have gone about a 4x4 usually, is sort of like the way V-Cubes approached the 6x6. Basically what they do, if you look at this piece right here, this is the equivalent of a middle edge on a 5x5. And so what they do basically is they build a 5x5 core and hide it beneath the middle slice around or underneath the rest of the pieces. And I think it's really interesting how the East Sheen company and the mf8 company had figured out how to prevent the locking up that V-Cubes had to deal with before V-Cubes ever created the 6x6. And I'm not sure why V-Cubes dealt with it the way that they did, considering that the technology to resolve it already existed in a better way, as you all know. Basically, if you're not familiar, I started cubing right about the time V-Cubes originally came out, so I got East Sheen cubes, and the 5x5 was quickly replaced by a V-Cube 5x5. And so I learned all of this right as soon as I began. Now, as I began, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah. Now, as I began to take apart this cube, I noticed first the shape of the, this is hard, notice first the shape of the edge. It reminded me a lot of the shape of an edge of a ball structure. As you can see, the little wings on the wing piece are a little bit longer, but it has the same basic shape. And so I was thinking to myself, well, this seems like it's a ball structure, so maybe I'll just have to spray some lube directly into the grooves. However, when I got to this point, where I had two edges out, I turned it, and I noticed right here that if you can see this little hole right here, that when I moved an inner slice, the hole moved up as well. And so I thought that was interesting. Maybe the ball rotates, like it has eight spots where a corner would be. So I began to take out some more of the edges and some corners. And so what I'm thinking is interesting now is that I'm noticing that this gap between these two like halves of a sphere, it's not wide enough to be a groove for these centerpieces to move on. And I'm seeing that unlike in the mf8 cube, which this is a mf8 cube, you had these pieces these edges that would move around when you took them apart. These edges aren't moving very much. So as I take the rest of this top layer out, these corners are still or these middle pieces are still in place. And so I just kind of went for it and pulled one out of there. And so once I got one out, I look inside, and much to my surprise, there is actually a 2x2 within this 4x4. And so these, where the corners would be on a 2x2, it creates a sphere that rotates. And then when you rotate the one of these sphere things, then two of the middle edges move with it, since they're locked into this little hole. And then these wings and corners that are locked in around those move along with it, instead of relying on this weird groove system that Rubik's and mf8s have used, or in clef8s, I guess. When you're lubricating this cube, be sure not only to lube the outer layers, but to spray directly into this hole, so you get the inner mechanism of the 2x2. Something else interesting that I noticed is that if you look closely at one of the middle pieces of this new 4x4, they bend. And that wasn't it breaking, it was just kind of snapping. They bend. I don't know if there's an actual spring in there or not, but when you bend it this way, there's tension that wants to go back. Now, I don't know why they did that, if there was an issue with constructing it and they needed to add some flexibility, or if it's supposed to help with corner cutting or something, I don't know. But it is very interesting. As is how this side's clef8, the mf8 one, and this side is the new mf8+Dayan. How with the corners and the wings on this cube, the pieces that go underneath it, that helps it lock in, they're bigger. So like here with the corners, then here again with the wings, they're just bigger. Something I've noticed about the cube, though, I have very few complaints about the cube overall, is that, what was it? Oh yeah. The wings tend to pop out, like, spontaneously. With most cubes, when I've had them pop, they pop for a reason. This one seems to pop without reason. I had to tighten it a little bit. I decided to try tightening the 2x2 rather than try these screws on the that connect the sphere to where the corners would be, because it seemed like those didn't have springs. It seemed like they were just screwed on there, and it helped a little, but it still pops once in a while. Besides that, a little something about the quality of the cube. It's a very, very good quality cube. I would say it's definitely, by far, the best 4x4 out there, which is nice, because I don't know how the world record people have been managing those times with the current Shengshou, Ghost Hands, whatever they've been using. Because this actually feels like a Rubik's Cube, or like a Speed Cube. Like, if you remember the older people, what an Ishin 5x5 felt like, and then how great it felt to get a V-Cube 5, it's kind of like that, but with a 4x4. It's an order of magnitude improvement. Within the first day of me owning this cube, I set my personal best at 50.68 seconds. My average hasn't improved a whole lot, but I've also been working with the tensions and lubing and just getting used to this cube because it feels so much different. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to point out how interesting this cube is. I'm currently working on solving a 5x5 blindfolded, and once I have a success on that, I will be uploading a video on how to extend the 4x4 blindfolded techniques into a 5x5.